Welcome to the Building Up Women in Property podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Bangura, and I'm thrilled to have you here with me today. This podcast is for ambitious women who work in property and construction, who want to learn how to have a career they love on their terms. Join me every week where I'll leave you excited and confident to take your next steps. Thanks for being here with me. Now let's get started. Hello, today we are talking about leaning into your zone of genius. Now, I quite often get people asking me about how to uncover their purpose or how to find fulfilling work. And I always like to shift the conversation to talking about zone of genius rather than purpose, because I think that understanding our zone of genius is a more useful and empowering perspective. And once you have clarity on that, your purpose becomes obvious. And by framing the question in terms of zone of genius rather than simply purpose, it also allows us to take into account the fact that there is always a trade-off going on. So you might have a purpose and fulfilling work that you could pursue, but it may not offer you the lifestyle benefits or the pay or the travel that you want to do. So it's about taking into account you as a whole person and what you want. And zone of genius really allows you to understand not only what you're good at and what motivates you and what drives you, but also it's where you can also get paid more for doing work that you love. But even if you're not questioning your career purpose, understanding your own zone of genius really will open up more opportunities for you. So stick with me as we go into this. You may or may not be familiar with this term of zone of genius. It comes from Gay Hendricks, who is a psychologist and author, and he coined the term in his best-selling book, The Big Leap, which I'll include a link to in the show notes. But basically, your zone of genius is the point where your unique talents, strengths, and skills all meet. Now, I like to think of this as being your superpower. This is where we are in flow and it feels energizing and restorative when we do this work, which is something I think we would all like. But before we can lean into our zone of genius, we need to first understand the stages of competence. And when we think of competence and skill and professional growth, I like to think of this as a spiral staircase. So we are always trying to move up the staircase, but we are going around and we're trying to get better and better and up level each time or each level we get to. And as we keep moving up the staircase, with each level, we are developing more skills and more competence and more confidence. And there are essentially 4 stages in traditional thinking about competence. The first stage is unconscious competence. Now, think of this as the start of your career when you don't even know what you don't know yet. And at this point, we're not very good at doing anything, right? We are literally fumbling through and we are on a rapid learning curve. Now, the second stage is conscious incompetence. So we've moved up a level and we are now at a point where we know what we should be doing, but we haven't developed the skills or the knowledge yet to actually complete the tasks. So this is where we are actually still struggling to get the work done. And over time and effort, we move into conscious competence. And it's here that we can get the job done. But it still requires a lot of brain power and effort. And we don't necessarily get fulfillment or satisfaction or pleasure from doing this work. We are working at a reasonable standard, but we're certainly not exceptional. And to be frank, there are other people around us that can probably do a much better job than we can. And then there's the 4th level, which is unconscious competence. And this is where, after progressing through these other stages, we are at a point where we are highly skilled. We know what we're doing, we're proficient, and we can do our jobs with ease. We are effective and our work has become almost a habit and we're able to consistently deliver results. And when we're really good and we are operating at that high level of unconscious competence, this is sometimes referred to as our zone of genius, because this is where we are really good at what we do and we are valued for our experience and our expertise and what we bring to the table. And once we reach this point of unconscious competence, we can then really start to excel into our zone of excellence. But your zone of excellence is where you are actually really being rewarded for the work you do and the experience and the expertise that you bring to the table, because you've actually achieved professional success. You're accomplished at this point. This is really where all the hard work and growth and persistence over the last few years or decades really feels like it's paying off for you. You know, you're one of the best in your field and, you know, you can be relied on to get those consistent results. But there is a real downside of being in your zone of excellence, because once we get to this point, we no longer need to commit to learning. We can actually sit within our comfort zone and succeed without feeling stretched. This can be a great feeling for a little while. It can feel like the fruits of all our labors that have led up to this. But if we stay in this space for too long, we become stale and we lose our passion for the work and we lose our interest. And because we no longer have that drive to push ourselves, we no longer get that same sense of accomplishment that we once did. So our success actually becomes less fulfilling. And this often happens once we are experienced, when you're at that sort of 10-year mark in your career, or you've been doing a particular role for a long time. And I often see people really struggle with what is next? Where do I go from here? Because working in your zone of excellence, it will burn you out over the long term. And whilst it feels very validating and we may feel very successful, we are not growing and evolving in the way that we are meant to. And as a result, we can end up bottoming out, which is not what any of us want. And it's when we're in our zone of excellence that we can miss the opportunities for growth, for creativity, and for innovation, because we are so comfortable doing what we already know how to do well. So the challenge then becomes, how do we reach for a new level of excellence without burning ourselves out or getting stale or tired? And the answer is to be consistently raising the bar for our own performance, which is where zone of genius comes in. So this is the next level on your competence staircase, right? And this is, again, it's raising the bar. It's raising the standard for what you do. And the zone of genius actually requires you to go outside of the norms of excellence. But this is where the real magic happens, because this is where you are doing those activities that you are uniquely suited to. And you are reaching almost like that point of self-actualization where you are doing that purposeful work that you feel truly called to do and you are naturally good at. And this is the space we operate from when our talents, our strengths, and our skills all coincide to do something that only we can do. I hope you've been enjoying the episode. I wanted to take a moment to let you know about my free Career Confidence Masterclass. This is for ambitious career-orientated women who are ready to stop playing small and to confidently create a career you love. Head over to my website, beautifuldisruptions.com, for more info. Now let's get back to the episode. As the name of Hendrik's book alludes, the shift from your zone of excellence into your zone of genius, it's a big leap because there are lots of blocks that we actually have to stepping into that zone of genius. So the first one is that it requires us to get really uncomfortable again, because that personal growth, it's a challenge. And if you think back to, those levels of incompetence, it's frustrating. It's hard being there knowing that there's still room to improve and there's work to be done. And the first reason is it's uncomfortable. It requires personal growth. And to be honest, most people will never reach their zone of genius because they get too comfortable and they never want to push beyond their point of excellence and comfort. And no one ever challenges them to do so because people like you in your zone of excellence. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want you to explore this idea because you are hardworking, right? You are ambitious and you've gotten to this point of excellence already in your career. So you're clearly driven, you're clearly motivated, and you care about the work you do and the impact it has on others and in the world. Unlocking your zone of genius, it is the opportunity to really push through to that next level and to become that next evolution of yourself and the next evolution of your skills, and to really work purposefully and ultimately increase your impact and increase your earning potential. Again, this is a really big step, but if you're willing to take the leap, that is what will make you exceptional. And it's from this place in your zone of genius that you can really embrace your mission with a deep sense of accomplishment and be truly happy and fulfilled with the work you do. But you need to be committed to the process and to the growth that comes with it. And I really invite you to think honestly about whether you're willing to go deeper and to do the work to reach your zone of genius, because it's not for everyone. It's not for the faint-hearted. But if you want to have a really remarkable career and you want to have the maximum impact and push boundaries on things, then you need to be ready to step up and to be a trailblazer and an independent thinker. And you've got to let go of the social norms and other people's expectations and be willing to really challenge yourself and others around you. And it's when we step into that space of creating your own path, it puts you in complete control of your happiness, of your success, And it's from that place that you really do get to do impactful work that is fulfilling. And when you're in your zone of genius, that's when you can educate others, you can collaborate. And it's where we're able to connect with people on a much deeper level because we live this stuff, we breathe this, and it's what makes us tick. This is where great leaders operate, in their zone of genius. These are the leaders that inspire and support others to work in their zone of genius as well. But again, this is something most people will never do. As I said, I'm not going to kid you here. This is a tough space to operate in, but you need to make that decision that this is what you want to do. And you have to be willing to let go of your ego and get uncomfortable in the process of reaching your own zone of genius. Now, the second reason this is really tough is because of the curse of the competent. And this is what I was alluding to before when we talk about other people not wanting you to move, because at this point, you are doing a great job. You're actually a star performer. You're a valuable asset to your organization and people respect you and you're getting well paid for the work you're doing and life is pretty good, right? On paper, everything looks perfect. And whilst the work you do is hard, it can be intense, you're really good at it and you know how to handle all the situations. And in your zone of genius, you are a sure bet, right? No one doubts your ability to do the work or deliver results. You are excellent at what you do. You are reliable. So stepping beyond this point, it requires you to be intentional and committed and to make that conscious decision to step out of your comfort zone and away from other people's expectations in pursuit of something greater. And lots of people won't like it. Lots of people will have opinions about why you should stay doing exactly what you're doing right now. And you need to be prepared to navigate these conversations and really be confident in your own skills and ability to forge a new path, irrespective of what other people think you should be doing. Now, the third limit to unlocking your zone of genius is something that Hendricks calls upper limit problems. And essentially, they're blockers to your own success. It's this idea that subconsciously, we each have a limit on how much abundance or success we think we are deserving of. And this is unspoken resistance or hidden barriers that we impose on ourselves that ultimately self-sabotage our own success and our happiness. And these upper limit problems are the result of limiting beliefs that we have subconsciously developed over time. And quite often they stem back to our childhood. Usually they revolve around a couple of core themes, which include fear of failure, fear of being alone, or fear of outshining others. And so if one of those resonates with you, you're not alone. But these upper limit problems are so important to understand because they trigger behaviors that reinforce and support our limiting internal messaging. So they actually limit what is possible for us. And this can show up in so many different ways. It can show up from spending time and energy worrying about things instead of being in action. It can be the paralysis of self-doubt. It can be taking actions that actually break trust and not delivering results when you're supposed to. It can be wasting opportunities or even getting sick. And all of these things really stop us from stepping into our power and stepping into the opportunities that are available to us. So with all that said, how do we lean into your zone of genius? Well, the first thing is to make the decision to make the big leap. Set the intention to leap into your own zone of genius. Decide that you are going to create a career on your terms where you can really thrive at work and operate at your highest level. And in making that commitment, you actually decide that you're willing to do the work and be committed to the journey and the discomfort as a process to get to a level where you'll be operating at your highest level, where you will be in flow and you will be having the biggest impact that you possibly can. Now, the second thing is to increase your self-awareness. And I can't understate how important this is because by increasing our own self-awareness, you're really challenging yourself to start unpacking those limiting beliefs about who you are and what you're capable of. We all have these beliefs, whether we realize it or not. Once we do this work, it allows you to take that complete ownership of your results, of your life, of your happiness, and you can start to then reprogram your beliefs so that you can actually set yourself up for success. And you do that by embracing a new story for yourself and then deliberately living into that story with authenticity and integrity. This allows you to actually let go and abandon those behaviors that have kept you feeling stuck. And it's important to just acknowledge, I think, that negative thinking is something that we all have, right? We all go through this on a daily basis. It's part of being human, but it does limit our happiness and our success. So we want to start being more intentional about who you are, what you're doing, and what you're creating, and start to give more airplay to the positive thinking, the positive thoughts, instead of ruminating in the negatives. And making that decision, making that choice, there is great power in that. Now, the third thing is you need to allow yourself to grow and evolve. So I don't ever encourage people to just say, yep, I'm going to uncover my zone of genius and I'm going to walk away from everything I've built up over years or decades. I don't think that's a good idea. What I want you to do is realize that cultivating your own zone of genius requires you just to lean in and slowly to evolve and grow into it. It's a journey again. So it's not an all or nothing situation. So at the start, this means that you might spend 10% of your day working in your zone of genius, right? And slowly you want to edge it up. So 10%, 20%, until you get to that 100%, but it will take time. And the way we actually do that is by getting really clear on what we are good at, what we like, what our talents and skills are, and where we thrive. And then you need to start saying no to things that you don't need to do. If they're not your zone of genius, then start to let them go. Let other people do them. This is about intentionally saying no and consciously choosing to expand and grow every day so that you can evolve your zone of genius and you also support others to do the same. And this work is fundamental to the journey I go on with my one-on-one clients, because understanding what is limiting us and giving ourselves the space to grow into what we are best suited for, it's a process. It really does require us to look at ourselves and work through a lot of things and make a lot of decisions about where we want to go. And so if you want some guidance and support on your journey, please reach out to me. But I want to leave you with this final thought. Our zone of genius is what will actually make us happy with our work long term. It will require us to get uncomfortable, and that is part of the process. But it is absolutely worth doing. It is not tied to anyone else's opinion of you. It is not tied to the financial rewards, although I believe that they come when we work in our zone of genius. But it's around doing something that feels natural and allows you to be the best version of yourself and allows you to do something in the world that other people can't do. And we all have this inside of us. And it's about getting out of our own way to really create the space to grow and be that person who operates at that outstanding level and has the remarkable career, because I know we are all capable of it. We all have different zones of genius. It's nothing to do with intellect or how creative we are. For each of us, our zone of genius will look completely different, and that's how it's supposed to be. But it's allowing ourselves to actually step into that uncharted space and explore and ask questions and let go of all the limitations we put on ourselves to create a career that we absolutely love and that offers value to the world. Okay, that's it. Have a beautiful day and just keep leaning in to your zone of genius, whatever that looks like. Thank you for joining me on the Building Up Women in Property podcast. I'm Rebecca Bangura, and if you'd like to learn more about what I do, head over to LinkedIn and connect with me. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.